You're listening to Book Banter with Dianne Burckhardt, your book talk podcast. Join me every Wednesday for real conversations with authors and publishing insiders, where you get to connect with the humans behind the books you love. Let's get on with our show today. Well, hello, my happy people. Today is February 18th, 2026, and oh my gosh, you would not believe how busy things have been behind the scenes of Lovefest this year. We opened our podcast guest applications just a few weeks ago, and we are fully booked for season 5. I cannot believe how fast it has gone. Before we even had our 3rd episode of this season, our entire season is booked. It's amazing. And the quality of authors that I have in this lineup this year will just astound you. Make sure that you subscribe to this podcast on whatever your favorite podcast streaming service is, because you are not going to want to miss these authors. We have got some incredible people coming. Everyone from a 13-year-old who is writing her first fantasy series to international best-selling authors. As we always like to say, if you love books like we do, you do not want to miss a single episode of this podcast. But for now, let's focus on who we're bringing to you today. We're continuing our Lovefest episodes with another wonderful author. Today we have a memoir that talks about love, loss, and finding the way home. This author has an extensive career being an essayist for several publications, but this is her debut book, Map of a Heart. So let's not waste any more time. Let's bring out this incredible author. Please welcome to Book Banter with Dianne Burckhardt, Jacque Gorelick. If you've never heard any of my shows before, the way that I always like to start out is just to ask my guests to please tell our listeners who you are and what you do.
Hi, I am Jacque Gorelick, and I'm a writer. I write essays, and I have a debut memoir coming out called Map of a Heart, a memoir of love, loss, and finding the way home. And that comes out February 17th with Vine Leaves Press. But I am also a mother and a wife, and I live in California.
Your bio, there's the ones that you have on your website and on some of your social media, is really touching. I mean, the things that you have gone through, it is very clear why you felt a need to write a memoir about this, because you've endured a lot.
I mean, yes. Yeah, I think, everyone has their ups and downs, but definitely, especially when I was younger, there were a lot of kind of repeated losses and separations and goodbyes and just a lot of kind of grief and uproot. So definitely.
I know you lost your mother when you were 8, and that forced you to move frequently throughout your childhood. How did those early experiences shape your understanding of belonging?
I think that for me, what happened was I kind of became removed from the world around me a little bit, maybe introverted. I think I am an introvert. It's always hard, isn't it, as we grow up, wondering how much is nature and how much is nurture. But I think part of the moving was, well, I can just journal, I can read, I can keep to myself. I don't have to keep trying to make new friends, trying to fit in. So I think socially, while I did have, I had a drive to be social and to have a group of friends. And I did manage to make some good lifelong lasting friendships along the way. I think part of that constant uproot, I was also very able to just kind of retreat and put my walls up and turn inward.
Were books an escape for you back then?
Definitely. Yes. Even before my mom died, my parents divorced when I was very young. So my dad was remarried, and I had his new wife, my stepmother, became a mom to me, and we all lived pretty removed from, we were in a really kind of remote country town in Northern California, and we didn't have TV. We had like this antenna on the roof that my dad would have to adjust if we wanted to watch something. So books were a huge part of how we spent our free time, books and coloring and being outside and all of those pre-technology things. So yeah, I didn't have TV a lot, even after that. It just wasn't something I was drawn to. So for me, for a lot of my life, yeah, books and writing and music, those are my go-tos.
Was there a point in your adult life that you began to understand how deeply your early losses influenced you?
That's such a good question. I think it took me a long time. I think it's the time that it was. People, maybe this is a generalization, but I don't think people were as likely to say, "Oh, you went through this. Let's talk about it a lot. Let's go to therapy.
Yeah.
Let's uncover these feelings that you have." It was more like, "Well, now you're okay. Let's move on. All you can do is move on from this,
Yeah.
and kind of keep going." And I was an oldest daughter. I was very, maybe as a coping mechanism, but I was very resourceful and independent. And, hypervigilance is definitely something kids of chaos and disjointed childhoods and upbringings develop as a coping mechanism. So I definitely had that. So I was hyper independent, hyper vigilant. And I think that part of all of that was, well, you've got to be okay. You just move on and you don't tell anybody. So I think there was partly that's what I tried to uncover in this book, and what I uncovered myself while writing it was that part of that is kind of keeping a secret, keeping part of yourself hidden, which I think creates shame, because even if it's not something that should be shameful, the very fact that you don't speak about it, that it's not open, that brings its own kind of shame.
Oh,
So
yeah.
I think I didn't even realize it, but I did grow up feeling a lot of shame and feeling a lot of blame. Like, this must have been my fault. They say kids do that, and I didn't really investigate that or interrogate that feeling very much until I was older. But it's like, kids feel guilty, and there's some kind of fault involved for the divorces or losing people they love or the chaos of their childhoods. And I definitely had that. So I
Hmm.
think that writing it helped me think about it a little bit in that way, which I hadn't done before, and think about how young I was when some of these things happened, and there were so many other factors going on that wasn't just, a divorce or a mother dying. There were so many other, and then guess what now? Another divorce, and your stepmom is leaving, and now you're gonna go move with your dad's new girlfriend and her kids, and now we're gonna go live somewhere else. And there were so many things that I think that taught me to just move on and deal with whatever is coming.
Yeah.
And so I guess the long answer to your question is I don't think I did a lot of thinking about how that affected me and how that impacted me until I got older.
And a lot of people do that. I mean, they don't realize until they're an adult. They're like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, that's why I do that. It's like
Mm-hmm.
suddenly you start connecting those dots.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's a scene in the book where I kind of come unglued because my mother-in-law packs up my CD collection without me there, because my husband and I were moving into a new house, and I was late from something getting there to help pack. And so she did it. And that collection had been something that I had bit by bit saved and purchased with my paychecks throughout my teens, throughout my early adulthood at Tower Records, if anybody knows how those were when they existed. And so it was this real meaningful collection to me. And I think after the history of having all of my belongings shuffled from one place to another, and having times where I did come home and our house was packed up, or came home to boxes and told to pack my room up,
Hmm.
that really brought up a lot of anxiety and fear and sadness and grief and anger for me. And so I think some of those things we discover as we go through our lives as our adult selves and realize, oh, where is this coming from?
Yeah.
So I did write about that.
And that makes perfect sense.
Yeah. Yeah. I can look at that and understand it now. But in the time, I think sometimes while we're feeling those things or having those reactions, we don't always have the clarity. So we have to look back at them and say, oh, yeah, that's where this was coming from. And then be aware of it.
Yeah.
Do the best we can.
I know whenever you started your career, you spent 2 decades as an elementary school teacher helping students turn ideas into stories. Did teaching children about storytelling influence the way that you approach writing in your memoir?
Ooh, let me think about that. I don't know how much it influenced how I wrote the memoir, but I think what influenced my desire to teach children, and especially, I mean, I was multi-subject, elementary school teacher. So we did work on everything, but there was a lot of fanfare in my class around how we did writing. And when we published a book, we would bind it and everybody would clap when somebody published it. They'd get to sit in the author chair and read it. So we did make a big fuss about it. And I think that probably came from my love of writing and my experience with writing and books being such a formative time for me and such an instructive part of what I loved. And I loved stories and I loved journaling. And so I think bringing some of that into the class actually came from my upbringing.
After spending so much time working as an elementary school teacher, what made you decide to transition into freelance writing?
So that, like with most life decisions, it's never just one thing. So that really came out of, I'd done it for, about 15 years. I'd taken a couple of years off to have my kids. And I think the landscape of early education was changing. I taught young kids and it was really changing and becoming a lot more structured and a lot more formulaic's the wrong word, but I'm a creative person and it just felt like there was less room for some of the things that there used to be room for in teaching. And honestly, my family needed me. We just had some shifts in where our focus and energy needed to be. And so it was just the right time for me. There were a lot of intersecting reasons, but they all kind of came at the same time. And it was just a good time for me to segue into something else. And so when I left, I think that natural core instinct to go towards writing and books was still in me. And so I thought, well, what will I do? Because I am a person who does like to have a lot going on, for kind of my creative brain and my stimulation. And so I took some classes on writing. One of them was writing kids' books, which made sense because I just come from teaching K-2 for so many years. But then another was something I hadn't really thought about doing, and that was a memoir class. And so my instructor, Rachel Herron, who is great, she had us think about an outline. She talked a lot about memoir. There were memoirists who called in and we talked about memoirs we loved. And I had read, plenty of memoir. I just hadn't thought about it until that point. And then we mapped them out and we wrote our first chapters and we workshopped work. And then I just kept doing it. I just kept working on it. And so that's kind of how it all started.
So this was the book that you started in that class?
Mm-hmm. Yes, it was. Yep.
Your memoir opens with a cardiac emergency that begins on a sunny jogging trail and ends in the intensive care unit.
Yes.
What was it like to have to relive that day whenever you started writing this book? Did it bring up some unexpected emotions again?
Yes. And, everything with time and distance, we get that kind of space that we need. So I think now I don't have this nearly the same response. But when I first wrote about it, I hadn't written about it at all. So it really was kind of going back in and reliving it. Yeah, it was really emotional. It was really scary. It brought up a lot of fear and health fear that I already held from losing my mom to cancer and then having other people I loved also pass away from illness. And so I think just kind of reliving that. And then, it's interesting how those fears transfer to worrying about people that you love. So that fear of reliving it then, transfers to me worrying about my kids and being probably overly worried and overly protective and driving them a little batty. But yeah, so it was definitely intense. And I just learned how to kind of take breaks and pace myself. And I think as I kept writing, I flexed that muscle a little bit where I could go back into it. And I was a little bit more grounded with the material as I kept going.
Now, just that opening with the cardiac emergency and being in the intensive care unit and having to be a medical advocate for your husband is traumatic enough.
Mm-hmm.
But you also had a newborn that you were having to take care of in the middle of all of this.
Yes.
And as most people know, having a newborn can be exhausting and time consuming, and you're having to balance both of those things. How did you manage to balance the care with your newborn and still be an effective medical advocate for your husband? I mean, I would hope you had a good support system.
I did. That was part of it. My friends came to support me right away. I had a core group that kind of took turns being there for me. And I didn't go home. I wanted to I'm sure, I mean, I look back and there was part of it that was just dedication to wanting to stay there in case anything changed or happened. I didn't want to be gone
hmm
because, my husband was in a coma and we were waiting to see how everything would go. And I was afraid to leave. So I'm sure that was on the surface level, like the reason, but I imagine there was part of it where it was too scary to go back home and see my house that we were building that felt like home finally. And
hmm
think I was going to have to go back to it without him and be a single mom. But I also think when you say it like that and ask about the new motherhood, I mean, I remember new motherhood even before this happened, having all those kind of new anxieties creep up about a tiny baby that I didn't know. I hadn't had a lot of experience, with anybody having tiny babies around me. I'd worked with children my whole life and I babysat, but like a brand new baby, they make noises, they have weird breathing. I
hmm
think even before that happened, with the hormones and the sleep deprivation, I was probably on a heightened anxiety level already. So
hmm
to your point, the way that I got through it is by having the people who showed up for me in the hospital with clothes, with baby supplies, everything that they could think of to support me in that way. But then really the hands-on transferring of my son to whoever was there at the time because he couldn't come into the ICU rooms. So when
Yeah.
I would go see my husband, he couldn't come in. So that allowed me to visit. But yeah, it was definitely anxiety provoking. And then I look back on it now, and it's kind of funny because I had a beta read from one of my mentors, and she was like, you have to stop talking about nursing and swaddling. And I said, oh my gosh, I'm sure it's just coming out on the page every 4 paragraphs because it was such a big part of it because
Yeah.
he was nursing and he wouldn't take a bottle. We were already struggling with that. So I had no other means to feed him. And that is really demanding. It's a whole other layer of where do I need to be every second I'm accounted for and I'm needed. So yeah, it was a lot.
The full title of your book is Map of a Heart, a memoir of love, loss, and finding the way home. Why don't you go ahead and tell our listeners a little bit more about the book?
Sure. We've kind of talked a little bit about the foundation here. So it braids together two very devastating periods of my life. One is the backstory of my kind of rootless, chaotic childhood, the catalyst of which was my mother dying when I was 8, and then my dad not being able to provide stability for my brother and I. And it ended up that I became estranged from all my family. So that is woven together with the day that my husband had this sudden cardiac emergency and ended up on life support when we had a 9-week-old son, and me kind of reliving that fear that his world would be shaped by early parent loss and that I once again would lose this stability that I had worked so hard to establish as an adult on my own, shaping my own family.
You mentioned that Map of a Heart weaves together the family crisis in the present day and your memories of childhood. How did you manage to hold both timelines together without it being too emotionally heavy?
It was emotionally heavy.
It would be hard not to be.
I didn't always write in order. So I think I listened to my body and where my mindset was. And I had young kids when I was writing this. So I wrote all over the place. I wrote at tutoring sessions at someone's house in their living room. I wrote at doctor's offices. I wrote at sports practices or waiting on the blacktop at school while there was an after school activity. So I had to write in public a lot. And so I couldn't always just cry at my desk. And actually, I think that was good because it put me in this place where, yes, I was close to the material and I could engage with the emotions, but I also had this kind of distance because I was sitting at a a picnic table in the middle of an elementary school playground or, somewhere else like that. So I think that ended up helping at times. And then those scenes that I knew I really needed to write in private, I would lock myself away and tuck myself away and do those and just do it in chunks, do it, as much as I could do and then take breaks.
When you were writing this, was there any moment that a scene that you were writing that kind of surprised you, how you reacted to it? I mean, was there a, wow, I can't believe I made it through that moment kind of experience?
I mean, honestly, those kind of ahas probably came more with writing about my childhood, just because as an adult, I think we kind of realize our strengths and what we're capable of, and life always surprises us. But there is part of being an adult where you just have to do it. I mean, I hate that saying, I don't know how you do it, or I would never be able to do that. And I always feel like, well, yes, you would, because you would do whatever you had to do. That's just what we do as adults. I think the ahas and the surprise things were as a kid, especially at the age my youngest was when I was writing this. There were a lot of moments in the book where he was about that age, or I could liken it to my older one and say, gosh, that would have been really heavy, or where did you put those emotions or that hurt from that experience? And so I think there were more ahas. I guess I don't know how to pick one thing. I think one of the hardest pivotal moments was getting separated from my brother. There were a lot of factors at play, but I don't think that's a subject that's talked enough about, sibling separation and what happens to siblings in these situations. And I know that siblings are not always close, but we were really close. And so I think that for people who are, there's just a lifelong impact of that. And I think writing those scenes and really thinking about how that was so painful and how and I'm sure he did too, we just had to move on from that and leave it in the past and move forward. But it's really a sad thing that I know for me never really healed. It's hard to get closure from something like that.
Yeah, because even if you get close now, you still can't make up for that time.
Yeah, no, it's a lot. So I think it was more just writing about those times when I was younger and kind of having a little bit more empathy for myself than I had in the past. And I could think of my students, or I can think of my kids and say, oh, you were this age when this was happening. That's a lot.
The heart functions both medically and metaphorically in your story. Did you make a conscious choice to use that symbolism, or was that something that just kind of came out in the story?
I think it's something that came out of the story. I will admit that as a new writer, I didn't have a grand plan other than I knew how it started. I knew how I wanted to end it. I knew kind of the structure I wanted to follow, but I didn't have a grand plan for that kind of a metaphorical takeaway or anything. But really, truly, the heart of the book was that while this medical crisis was unfolding and the fallout from that was unfolding, I was having my own internal kind of crisis of reliving and kind of looping back in time and thinking about these experiences that I had that had led me to this place in my life, and thought, this just can't happen. Like, I can't lose this family too. And so I think it was just came out of it organically.
Now, one of the things that you mentioned earlier was that you had actually been writing for quite a while, and you have essays that have appeared in many major publications. Did publishing personal essays help you prepare to write this full-length memoir?
I think so. And I published a lot of them alongside doing it. So I guess that would also go to how you take breaks when you're writing and where, that would help. Like, okay, I think I need a break. I'm going to work on an essay or, something different just to give myself a little space from the material. But, some of those essays are definitely related to the material. I think it's all helpful. It's a little bit of a different muscle, writing an essay, and that it's got a shorter arc and you've got to take it to where it needs to be in a different way. But I think all of that is helpful. And there are definitely things that I've written about in essays that are not in this book. It's kind of like it's a container and it's through a lens of what story is this book telling. And so, I mean, there are definitely things that I was able to write about in essays that I haven't yet put in a book, maybe one day, but that weren't in this one. So I think it was good to be able to do both.
Now, your memoir asks the question, what makes a family? Did this experience of writing your memoir help reshape your own answer to that question?
I think by the time I wrote this, I felt pretty firmly I had done the living of that question. And I had gotten to a place where I really did feel that a family it can be all different shapes and sizes. I mean, that's always the thing I've struggled with, right? I don't have a huge extended family to offer my kids. I don't have this traditional family when people ask, where are you going for Thanksgiving? And I think those things always felt shameful. So I don't think it reshaped what I knew to be true about family. I think what it reshaped for me was letting go of some of the shame in that, because I could kind of trace the line of how it got from A to B and see that's just how the cards were dealt, and that's how my life was shaped, and that my family still is as important and full of love and meaning as, as anybody else's family.
And that's the important part.
Yeah.
So now is the perfect time to do our 5 quick questions that never turn out to be quick, but we just refuse to quit trying. One day it will happen. Are you ready?
Yes.
So question 1, you mentioned in your bio that you have quite a collection of rescue animals. What would they be?
So at this time, I have 2 dogs and a cat and a hermit crab. But we have, over the years, we just said goodbye to one of our dogs last year, and then a year before that, another one. So we've had up to 3 at a time. But right now I've got 2 rescue dogs, a cat, and yes, my youngest has a hermit crab.
That's cute. My niece and nephews used to have hermit crabs. They're adorable.
Did they? Yeah, they're just not a pet that I would have picked. But my older son had one too. And then, of course, my youngest wanted what my older son had. And so for some reason, we are very unusually good at keeping them for a long time. So they grow to be quite large. And this one is Fred, and we've had him for probably 5 or 6 years.
I love that. Fred the crab.
Fred the crab.
And I'm a big fan of rescue dogs. We have a rescue dog from Moscow. He was a street dog in Moscow.
Wow.
And he is the sweetest dog we've ever had in our life.
Oh, yes. I'm a big fan of rescues, and they deserve a chance. And I think the one component that it takes, obviously, is that window when you first get them. They've been through a lot, and you have to have the patience. But I think that that's really rewarding, and I'm not surprised at all that I'm drawn to the dogs who need the patience and the love to heal from trauma. But yes, here we are.
Yeah, our boy Shaggy, they say that they usually need like 3 months to decompress. He needed like 5 years.
Oh boy, I've heard that from some people. Yes. Yeah.
But he's good now.
Yeah. Yeah. The one we just got, he was pretty easy peasy and loving and all of that. But we needed about 6 months for our other dog to adjust to him, because she lost her best friend, very suddenly, as did we, so it was kind of traumatic, the loss of our old one. So they needed the time, but they're doing fine now. But we had to just be patient with it.
Yeah.
So
that's usually all they need is just time and love.
Yep. Time and love and consistency. Yep.
So now question 2. Since your newsletter pairs each story with a book and a song, what book and song would you choose to represent this season of your life?
Oh my goodness. Ooh. Ooh. Oh boy. That is a tough one. Can I come back to that question?
Yeah, we can come back to that. So then question 3. You have lived from Santa Barbara to Alaska and now under redwoods in the Bay Area. Which place has felt most like home to you?
Oh, definitely where I am now. Yeah, definitely where I am now. We've been here for about 7, 8 years now. And so it's probably the longest I've lived anywhere. And it's definitely the longest my kids have been anywhere. And it feels like home. So definitely here.
That's nice. The place that you are now is your home.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
So now question 4. What is one small act of kindness that made an impact on your life?
Oh, there have been a lot. I feel really lucky in that way. I've had a lot of people do many kind things for me. I think maybe, though, I'll choose one that's related maybe to this book. And that is when I was in middle school, I don't think they do this anymore, but I was like the school counselor's assistant. And so I would go there for one of my classes each day and I would file things for him or do things he needed, make copies or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And I was the school secretary. I did the morning announcements. Like I was very much just do all of your things and be a good student and stick to yourself kind of. And so one day I walked in and he didn't have anything for me. And he said he just wanted to hear my story, and he just wanted to listen. And I told him and he was like, whoa. But I remember he just said, well, you are a good kid. You're a good kid. And I don't think I felt like a good kid. And I didn't certainly. So it was just nice to hear from an adult and from a teacher that so I'll choose that.
I like that. It's amazing how somebody just making one offhanded comment can make such a difference. That's a good one too. Let's see. So question 5. This is a question that we're asking everyone, that we're going to be making a compilation list of everyone's answers to put in our year-end book buying guide, the Book Banter magazine that comes out in November for holiday shopping. And your question is, what is the best book to movie adaptation that you think that you have seen so far?
Oh my goodness. Okay. Ooh. I don't watch a ton of movies, but so many are from books and you don't even realize it. And then all the
I know.
like people go and they don't know that it was a book. So
some of the ones that people have said so far this season, I'm like, that was a book. I need to go find that book.
I know. And then it's like to compare it.
That's part of the point of the 5 quick questions, though, is to catch you off guard.
Well, I mean, this would require me to have read the book. I will say that one that I know came from a book, but I didn't read the book that I absolutely love is The Princess Bride. But that's not very current. But that is
doesn't matter.
Of my go-to favorite. Yeah, but I mean, I'm not pulling anything very modern out of this. I'm sorry, I'm kind of stumped. I think in this year of getting this book ready, I've hardly watched any movies.
The book that I chose was a movie back in the 80s.
Okay, so it's an older. Okay,
yeah.
So that's
what
you choose. I think Wild was a good adaptation. Now now that I know I can go back in time and not have something current, like I think that was a good adaptation that felt pretty true to the book. But yeah, I'm sure there are a ton more that I'm just not thinking of right now. One book that I love, and I kind of love the backstory of the book too, is When a Monster Calls. It's so heartbreaking. It's a YA book about a boy who loses his mother to cancer. And I read it to my older son when he was younger, and we had to take breaks because it's just so powerful. But the name of the author is not coming to mind. But I do think that the writing of it was interesting because I think the author writing it passed away and then someone they knew finished it for them.
Oh, wow.
So then I did watch the adaptation. I think Liam Neeson is the monster. And I thought the adaptation for that was pretty powerful. But yeah.
I'm going to have to look that one up next. I haven't heard of that.
It's sad, but for a kid like me, I really did love the story. I mean, it's got a lot of messaging in it that the book I loved. It was beautiful.
That makes sense. Yeah. So now, did you think of an answer?
Oh my goodness. Okay, my life. Well, I mean, I could be really on the nose and think of something about someone writing a book, but maybe I'll just say, since this book that I'm writing about has to do with kind of looping back to an experience that is medical and then sending you back in time, looking at memories. Maybe I'll say Joan Didion's Year of Magical Thinking.
Oh, nice.
And then a song, maybe I will say, so when I was writing this, I definitely had been a Grey's Anatomy fan for a long time. And there were things about Grey's Anatomy that were memorable to my experience. Not that it's 100%. I think The Pit is probably a lot more realistic, but there were scenes in that show that reminded me so much of this experience. And one of them was when Izzy, she has a brain situation. She goes into a coma and Alex is so sad. And so I felt, oh yeah, I know what that was like. And I'm pretty sure there's an Ingrid Michaelson song called Keep Breathing in that scene. And I really loved that song. And it was kind of just like, the song is just kind of about like, you just keep going. Like the world is burning, you're going through, whatever you're going through, but all you can do is just keep breathing, keep putting one foot in front of the other. So I think that's more tied to the book than my life right now. My life right now feels very balanced and stable, knock on something, because I don't say that and not have superstitious worries, but but I'll just tie it all to the book. How about that?
Well, one thing that I've noticed too, it's like somebody who's gone through a lot of trauma, usually you're more nervous when things are good.
Oh, yes.
Because you're like waiting for the next thing to happen. When you're in the middle of like all of the torment, it's like that's where you live. That's what you know. You know what to do then. But when things are really good,
thrive.
Yeah. But when
not
things
that you
are
want
good,
it, but it's like, oh yeah.
It's like, what's going to happen? What's going to ruin this?
I think that's very true. And I think I had a lot of health anxiety going into this book launch. And I think that, I had to really think about, where is this coming from? And I think it was, well, of course, something will happen because I'm about to launch a book. Something is going to happen. I can barely say this out loud without feeling so superstitious. So I probably shouldn't. But yes, I really agree with you. And I don't know, that's just going to always be there, I think.
I think the one thing is, though, is once you recognize that, then you can kind of mitigate it. But I think there's always going to be that knee-jerk reaction. It's like every once in a while, it kind of just resurfaces and you have to push it back down.
Yes. I mean, there really is that waiting for the other shoe to drop. And I think you said it. I think it all the time, but I've never said it out loud. It's when things are steady and stable and good, something must be on, there must be a phone call coming. There must be something coming. Yeah, I definitely live with that. Yeah. But you're right. We get older and we deal with it and we know that and plan ahead for it and be prepared to tell it to be quiet.
Yeah. So now let's remind everyone who you are and where they can find your book.
So I'm Jacque Gorelick, and my debut memoir, Map of a Heart, a memoir of love, loss, and finding the way home, comes out February 17th with Vine Leaves Press. You can buy it wherever you get your books. And people can find me at my website, JacqueGorelick.com. And then I'm on most socials with @JAC Gorelick. And my Substack is Heart Matters by Jacque Gorelick. And that's about it. That's where you can find me.
Well, and to make it even easier for everyone else, we're going to have links to all of your social media in the description of today's podcast so that everybody can just open up the description and click and go and find you everywhere.
Oh, wonderful. That makes it easy.
Yeah, and that way they can have no excuse to not go buy your book today because they can just click the link to go buy the book.
Well, thank you so much. That's amazing.
This has been absolutely wonderful. I'm so glad we got to sit down and do this. You are a delightful guest.
Oh, thank you so much. I know this was a wonderful conversation, so thank you so much for having me. This was great.
So there you have it, folks. My interview with the incredible Jacque Gorelick. Be sure to go to the description of today's podcast and check out all of her social media, especially head on over to her Substack. It is called Heart Matters. It is her free monthly newsletter that spotlights everyday people who are making a meaningful difference in their communities and reminds readers that goodness still exists. And of course, you should also check out her main website where you can find a link to go buy her book. Now, next week, we have another incredible author for you. I will be talking to none other than Monty Schultz. You might recognize that name as he is the son of Charles Schultz, the Peanuts creator, but Monty has created a writing career uniquely his own, and we get into all of that in his episode next week. And remember, if you would like to find out more information about Monty Schultz or any of the other authors who are scheduled to be on our podcast, just head on over to burkhartbooks.com/podcast, where you will find all of the information about the authors who are currently on the show and at least 2 months of advance information about the authors who are in our schedule. If you would like to keep up to date on all of the things that are happening with Burckhardt Books and Book Banter Productions, be sure to sign up for the newsletter. We only publish one newsletter a week, and it gives you information on All of the books that we have coming out from Burckhardt Books, our podcast, and our companion magazine, Book Banter Magazine. Well, I think that is it for today, folks. So you know what that means. It's that time for you all to go forth and be really happy. And be sure to come back next week for more. Thank you for joining us today. Be sure to subscribe to Book Banter with Dianne Burckhardt on your favorite podcast streaming service. Because if you love books like we do, you do not want to miss a single episode of this podcast.